Somewhere in Africa tonight, a man's body is being dissolved. Not by time, not by the earth, by acid, poured by government officials from Belgium. The year was 1961. The man was Patrice Lumumba, the first democratically elected Prime Minister of the Congo. And the reason they had to erase every trace of his body tells you everything you need to know about what Africa was truly worth to the people who claimed to be civilizing it. June 30th, 1960. Congo declared independence from Belgium after 75 years of one of the most brutal colonial regimes in human history. And standing at the podium that day was a 34-year-old man from a small village called Onalua, a man who had built a political movement with his bare hands. Patrice Lumumba. But Lumumba did something that day that nobody had planned for. He looked the Belgian king in the eye, in front of every camera in the world, and he told the truth. Our wounds are too fresh and too painful for us to forget them. We have known humiliation. We have known mockery. We have known blows, morning, noon, and night, because we were Africans. In that moment, every Western intelligence agency watching understood the same thing. This man was not going to play by the rules they had written. And Congo, the country sitting on top of coltan, cobalt, uranium, diamonds, and gold, was not going to be handed over quietly. Lumumba had to go. CIA Director Alan Dulles wrote one sentence about Lumumba in a classified cable. Lumumba's removal must be an urgent and prime objective. Removal. That was the word they used. They tried poison first. The CIA sent an operative to Leopoldville with a tube of toothpaste, laced with a biological toxin engineered to kill without leaving a trace. The plan failed. Lumumba switched toothpaste, so they moved to Plan B. They would use an African hand to do a Western job. By September 1960, just 70 days after independence, Lumumba had been removed from power by a CIA-backed coup, stripped of his title, stripped of his protection, but still alive, still dangerous. And as long as Lumumba was breathing, the men in Washington and Brussels believed Africa could still be lost. What they actually did is something the world was not supposed to know. January 17th, 1961, a small convoy of military vehicles drove into the Katanga bush as the sun set. Inside one vehicle, Patrice Lumumba, 35 years old, the man who had stood at a podium 6 months ago and made the Belgian king uncomfortable, was now being driven to his own execution. The execution was carried out by a Belgian police commissioner and a Congolese firing squad. Lumumba was stood against a tree. He refused a blindfold. 3 volleys. It was over. But that was not the end. The body was a problem. A grave could become a shrine. A shrine could become a revolution. So they brought shovels and sulfuric acid. What they did over the next 2 days in that clearing, they did with their own hands. They dissolved him, until the first Prime Minister of the Congo no longer existed in any physical form. They wanted to erase him from history. They thought that by destroying the body, they could destroy the man. But they were wrong. One of the men who did this, Belgian police officer Gerard Soete, kept a souvenir. He kept one of Lumumba's teeth, and decades later, on Belgian television, he showed it to the camera, and he smiled. He was never charged with a crime. For 61 years, that tooth was all that remained of Patrice Lumumba, reduced to a trophy in a Belgian policeman's pocket. But here is what they did not understand. You cannot dissolve an idea in acid. You cannot shoot a vision. You cannot bury a truth in an unmarked grave, because the unmarked grave was theirs, not his. Lumumba's name was written on the streets of the world. Patrice Lumumba was a promise of dignity, a promise that Africa belonged to Africans. And that promise is being kept today. Every child who learns his name, every student who reads his words, they are the living remains of the man they tried to erase. In June 2022, 61 years later, Lumumba's family finally received his remains. A golden coffin, draped in the Congolese flag. Inside it, one tooth. That was all Belgium had left. One tooth, and the entire world watching. Because you can dissolve a body, but you cannot dissolve what a man stood for. Today, he is finally home. The Akan people of Ghana have a symbol called Sankofa, a bird flying forward, but with its head turned back. It means it is not wrong to go back and fetch what you forgot. Patrice Lumumba was a memory Africa was forced to forget. Today, you fetched him back. Share this story. Subscribe to African AI. We are just getting started.